Creepiest doorbell. Camera clips that will make you never open your door again. Part 12. The Unseen Figure. Ethan had never been one to believe in the supernatural, dismissing such things as nothing more than stories told to entertain or frighten. But now, as he stood frozen in his living room staring at the darkened hallway ahead, all of his rational thoughts seemed to fade away. The strange, unseen figure that had appeared on his Ring doorbell camera was not something that could be explained away by simple logic. No, this felt different, too different to be dismissed. It had started as an ordinary night, with Ethan watching television, trying to unwind after a long day at work. The house was silent, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. He had just finished dinner and decided to check his phone when, out of nowhere, his Ring doorbell app pinged with a motion alert. Motion detected at your front door. It wasn't uncommon, maybe an animal or a stray person passing by. But a strange sense of unease filled him as he opened the app. The first few seconds of the video feed showed nothing but the empty porch. The lights flickered, casting long, unsettling shadows across the lawn. Ethan was about to dismiss it when something appeared in the corner of the frame. A faint, shadowy figure moving slowly across the yard. It wasn't clear at first, just a vague shape, a shifting presence that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Ethan leaned in closer, his breath catching in his throat. The figure was humanoid, but its shape was distorted, almost translucent. It drifted like smoke, floating just above the ground, moving steadily toward his front door. He watched in complete silence, unable to tear his eyes away from the screen. He had never seen anything like it before. The figure didn't make any noise, no rustling of leaves or footsteps, just the eerie, unnatural glide as it passed through the camera's field of vision. As it reached the porch, the figure seemed to pause for a moment. Ethan's heart began to race. Was this a trick? A prank? He scanned the camera for anything that might explain what he was seeing. Someone pulling a joke, perhaps, or the wind moving a plastic bag. But there was nothing. This was something else, something he couldn't explain. The figure moved again, this time coming closer to the door. It stopped, hovering just inches away from the lens. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the camera flickered. In that brief moment, the figure's form became clearer, though it still seemed shrouded in a dense mist. He couldn't make out any features, no distinct characteristics, but the unsettling feeling of being watched washed over him. He could feel the pressure of its presence, as if the figure was not just outside, but also in the house with him. Its attention focused solely on him. The app began to glitch, the feed distorting and cutting in and out, as though something was interfering with the signal. Just when he thought the video would cut off completely, the feed returned. But the figure was gone. Ethan's heart slammed in his chest. He couldn't breathe. It had vanished. Where did it go? The sense of dread that had been creeping over him now felt like a suffocating weight pressing against his chest. The house seemed to grow colder, the silence growing more oppressive with each passing second. Ethan's mind raced. He checked the locks on all the doors and windows, double-checked the security system, but nothing seemed to calm his nerves. The figure was still on his mind, its presence lingering like an unwelcome guest. Suddenly, his phone buzzed again. Another notification from the Ring camera. This time there was no motion detected, no figure standing outside. But the app didn't just send an alert, it opened a new video feed. The strange figure was back, but this time it wasn't outside. The feed showed the inside of the house. The hallway just beyond his living room door was now visible. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he watched the figure move through the hallway, its form flickering in and out of sight. It wasn't just standing still anymore. It was moving, gliding through the hallway, like a shadow that wasn't quite a shadow. The footage was blurry, the figure distorted, but it was unmistakable. He felt a surge of panic flood his chest. Was someone in his house? No, this couldn't be real. He had checked the door. He had checked the windows. There was no way anyone could have entered. Yet there it was, the figure moving down the hallway toward the kitchen. The camera feed began to distort again, the screen flickering between static and blurry images. He could barely make out the figure's movement as it passed through the kitchen. The eeriest part of it all was how silent it was. No footsteps, no sounds of breathing or movement. It was as if the figure was never really there, yet at the same time, it was all too real. Ethan's mind raced. What was happening? Was this some kind of glitch in the camera system? Or had he unknowingly captured something paranormal? His phone buzzed once more, but this time it wasn't an alert from the camera. It was a text. The message simply read, "I'm still here." Ethan's blood ran cold as he stared at the screen, the words burning into his mind. The voice that had been so silent earlier now whispered in his mind, cutting through his thoughts. He wasn't alone. The figure, whatever it was still inside his house, moving closer, watching him. A cold chill swept through the living room. He turned, expecting to see a breeze or an open window, but everything was still. Everything was locked up tight. He was alone, wasn't he? A knock came from the front door. Slow, methodical, as if it were a signal, an invitation to come closer. The air in the room grew thick with fear. Ethan didn't move. He couldn't. His feet were frozen to the floor, his chest too tight to breathe. He took one last glance at the screen on his phone, and the figure was gone. The house was still. The door was still. But in the silence, Ethan heard something else. A soft whisper, barely audible, like a breath against his ear. "I'm still here." The voice echoed, and this time he could feel it, like a presence pressing against him, closing in, just beyond the door. He had been warned. The figure had been waiting. But what did it want from him? As the story unfolded, Ethan, Anna, David, Jake, and Mia each found themselves grappling with the terrifying realization that their homes, the very places where they had once felt the safest, had become traps, vulnerable to forces they couldn't understand. What began as ordinary, everyday lives slowly transformed into a waking nightmare, where the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural blurred. The calm of their homes was shattered by strangers lurking in the shadows, figures both physical and inexplicable, testing their resolve and pushing them to the edge of fear and survival. For Ethan, it was the chilling figure that haunted his Ring doorbell camera, seemingly an otherworldly presence, moving in and out of his reality, flickering in the dark corners of his home. His logical mind, once steadfast in skepticism, was eroded by the eerie, unnatural events unfolding before him. Despite his rational thoughts, Ethan found himself questioning everything, struggling with the fear of being watched by something beyond comprehension. The unsettling presence that followed him through his house left him with a terrifying realization. Some things in this world, no matter how much we try to deny them, are beyond our control. For Anna, the nightmarish cycle of a break-in attempt, followed by the repeated appearance of intruders, wore down her sense of security, breaking her down emotionally and mentally. The fear that something could happen to her children, the overwhelming sense that these men were not just after material goods, but something more personal, consumed her every thought. The second time they came back, she felt that this wasn't just a random act of violence. It was a deliberate attack on her home, and on her peace of mind. Anna's experience highlighted a terrifying reality. When safety is compromised, everything else, from physical possessions to emotional stability, becomes secondary. What matters most is the survival of those we love, and sometimes that means facing down the unknown with nothing but sheer willpower. David, who once felt confident and unshaken by his quiet suburban life, was forced into a terrifying encounter with masked intruders who not only threatened his life, but played mind games, forcing him into a psychological battle. The moment the masked figure taped over his doorbell camera, David realized that his physical security systems weren't enough. These intruders were not just after valuables. They were challenging him, testing his fear, and forcing him to confront the vulnerability we all fear deep down, the inability to protect ourselves when we most need to. David's struggle was one of resourcefulness in the face of uncertainty and terror. Jake, like the others, faced a terrifying intruder situation. But what set his experience apart was the direct and terrifying encounter with armed assailants. It wasn't just about getting into his home. It was about threatening his very life. The presence of firearms and the realization that these men would not stop until they had what they came for created a pivotal shift in Jake's character. This wasn't just a break-in. It was an assault, an act of violence that completely changed the course of his life. Jake's experience was a harsh lesson on the harshness of the world around us, where danger is often unpredictable, and our ability to protect ourselves, both physically and mentally, is constantly put to the test. Mia, too, found herself trapped in the grip of fear when masked strangers stood at her door, testing the limits of her security and her resolve. The fake knock, the strange behavior, and the waiting game played on her emotions, pushing her to confront the lurking fear that not everything is as it seems. As the story unfolded, Mia was forced to realize that fear, when allowed to take root, can erode our sense of control, leaving us paralyzed. Her story reminded us that we cannot always control the actions of others, but we can control how we react to them, how we choose to protect ourselves and our loved ones. All of these characters were drawn into terrifying situations where they were forced to question their own sense of security and safety. The terror they experienced was not just from the figures that lurked outside their doors, but also from within. It was the overwhelming realization that control is an illusion, and sometimes, no matter how prepared we think we are, life will throw us into situations we never anticipated. The unseen forces, whether they are otherworldly figures or armed intruders, are symbols of the unknowns in life that challenge us when we least expect it. In the end, the journey of these characters wasn't just about survival, it was about transformation. Each of them was tested, forced to confront their own fears, and ultimately changed by the experiences they endured. They learned that in moments of crisis, it's not just physical protection that matters, it's mental resilience, the ability to push through fear, and the strength to protect what we hold most dear. The deeper lesson here is one that resonates with all of us. Life is unpredictable, and no matter how much we prepare, we cannot anticipate every danger that may come our way. The key to surviving these moments, whether they are physical break-ins, emotional crises, or spiritual battles, is how we respond. It's about cultivating resilience in the face of fear, about staying grounded even when everything seems to be falling apart, and about finding strength in the most unlikely places. In the face of the unknown, our will to protect those we love, our ability to adapt, and our determination to survive are what carry us forward. For the viewers watching this story unfold, there's a vital lesson in understanding the fragility of life's security. No matter how safe we feel, danger can strike at any moment. It teaches us to remain vigilant, to be prepared without becoming consumed by fear, and to value the safety of our loved ones above all else. If you found this story compelling, if it's resonated with you and made you reflect on your own life, we encourage you to subscribe to this channel. By subscribing, you not only support us, but you also help keep the momentum going for more gripping and thought-provoking content. Your support fuels our passion to create more stories that challenge your perceptions, spark your imagination, and, above all, remind you that we are all more resilient than we realize. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and we hope to bring you more stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your next adventure is just a click away.